Hey, gals and guys, it's Christopher Mosier from MyMediaHelper.com, and this is not going to be a very popular opinion, but here we go.
News on Capitol Hill today. CEOs of the largest social media companies faced a bipartisan grilling during a Senate hearing on protecting children online. And one of the
tensions were high as 5 heavyweights from Meta, X, Discord, Snap, and TikTok were in front of the Senate Judiciary Committee. They were grilled by senators, but were really
of major tech companies were grilled in the Senate today about child exploitation online and what their companies are doing to protect children.
Okay, so apparently they were grilled. It's interesting that all the news stations say they were grilled. I guess they just got the designated script to what they should tell their audience from whomever. I just find it interesting that every news anchor said they were grilled.
I think modern parenting over the last 20 years has softened so dramatically that many parents are mad at TikTok and Instagram and social media without realizing they have 100% control of deleting it off their child's phone. They have 100% control of taking their child's phone away for a month if they choose to. So guiding my children, for me, it's actually paying attention and caring to what they're consuming. I think parenting in 2023 has become too passive, has been too conducive to being your kid's friend instead of your kid's parent. And I would argue that until we get back to full accountability, we will continue to blame politics, the mainstream media, social media, TikTok, Facebook, and we're blaming, yet every parent that's watching this right now has control because they're the parent. So my point of view on this is parents need to step up in a significant way. Be willing to be inconvenienced of their child being upset with them and actually parent.
As this video's thumbnail suggests, are you going to open up a beer for a child and light their cigarette for them and then blame the beer and cigarette company for your child having cirrhosis of the liver and lung cancer? No. I hope this is your answer. Then why the hell are you letting your kid on social media? And if you are, why aren't you paying attention to what they're doing? Believe it or not, millions of children get on social media daily and have a very positive experience. But now that a handful of parents can't parent their children, we now have them showing up in Congress representing their bad parenting. This may seem like a harsh and cruel opinion. I strongly feel this country, being the United States, is filled with entitled finger pointers, meaning they take no responsibility for the things that happen around them. My question is, what initially led these children to commit suicide? Social media is a fantastic scapegoat, but social media didn't make these children do what they did. Unless you want to put regulations on communications and free speech, be it spoken or written, and its many outlets, then perhaps instead of pointing fingers at the most convenient party, perhaps there should be a strong, long look into self. This whole thing is crap. I feel bad for the parents who lost their children. Let's get that right out into the open. I also question their parenting. Bullying is nothing new. I personally was a fat kid and bullied. Social media wasn't even a factor then. We're talking the 1980s. It's easy to blame something else than yourselves. Parents are there to parent their children. They're not there to pawn off a child's actions on something else or someone else. We've seen it countless times before with violent television or video games, parents getting up in front of Congress boistering and flexing their muscles about these outlets without getting to the bottom of the actual problem, which is parenting. Let's start parenting our children and stop blaming everyone and everything else.
That's watching this right now has control because they're the parent. So my point of view on this is parents need to step up in a significant way. Be willing to be inconvenienced of their child being upset with them and actually parent.
So like I said in the beginning, this is probably going to be a very unpopular opinion, but the truth also very, very much hurts. I am not a very big fan of Zuckerberg, can't stand the guy. This is not a video standing up for any CEO of any social media platform. They have their own issues beyond this. I've made a handful of videos on this channel without being overly kind to Zuckerberg, Fuckerberg, which I like to call him. Should he have apologized for those parents in Congress? I suppose it was the right thing to do, but it also shouldn't represent any type of guilt. He was kind of put on the spot there, so I guess if I was in the same situation, I would have done the same thing. Although, like I said, I dislike Meta, and I dislike Zuckerberg for a variety of other reasons. There's no way his company caused the death of children committing suicide. I would point my finger more towards the parents, some kind of mental illness and victim status of society, meaning that the finger of guilt is always pointed in the wrong direction. We are a victim society. Most most of the time, people aren't responsible or don't feel they're responsible, I should say, for their own actions. It's always someone or something else because it couldn't possibly be them. In this case, the finger is pointed towards social media when it probably should be pointed more towards bad parenting. I would be much more interested in these people finding guilt with social media companies as to what their parenting style is. Did these parents acknowledge their children? Did they take an interest in what their children were doing online? I saw the pictures held up by parents, and those kids were too young to be on social media without parental regulation. Corporations and social media aren't responsible for your children. I am not responsible for the decision you made in bringing life into this world. You are. You decided to bring a child into this world. I don't have children, and there is a reason I never had or wanted children. I didn't want to deal with them, plain and simple, so I had no right to bring a child into this world. So stop blaming your issues and your children's issues on everything else but yourself. I'm sorry your children took their own life. I truly am. But there's more to the story than social media. There's much more to the story. We'll never find out what that story is because the media has some juicy things to report, and parents of deceased kids going against the corporate giants of social media is very juicy. Oh, indeed, it's so juicy. The hell with what was going on in the home with the parents and the child, the important things. Let's just arbitrarily blame social media because this is a victim-led society. Everyone needs a scapegoat. Everyone needs a finger to point at because it will never be pointed at themselves. You're the parent, so just like that guy just said in the clip, parent. I just find it extremely, extremely interesting that we just take it on good faith that every parent holding their dead child, a picture of their dead child in their hands, are good parents. We just take it as good faith, and that doesn't make any sense. There's so many factors, there's so many puzzle pieces, there's so much that we don't know about their lives and what happened before this whole Congress thing. We have no idea what happened in their home. We have no idea the psychological issues the child had, the psychological issues the parents had. Was there alcohol? Was there abuse? Maybe there wasn't. I'm not saying there was, but we don't know. We just take it on good faith. And I think that alone is pretty stupid and ignorant. Can parents possibly know what their kids are doing 24 hours a day? That's not social media's fault, what your kids are trying to get away with. If you tell your kid to stay off social media and your kid doesn't, that's not social media's fault. If you tell your kids not to play in traffic and they go on the expressway and run around, get hit by a car and die, that's not the fault of the driver, the city, or the town, or whomever you wish to blame. We'll chalk it up as an unnecessary accident with a child who just didn't take playing in traffic seriously. No one is telling your kid to go on social media. No one is telling your kid to turn on television or play video games. No one is telling your kid to play in traffic. But if they happen to do any of that and they're not considered adults, that's on the parent, not society. That's not on social media, parents. That's on you. That's not on social media. That's not about video games. I grew up in a house full of guns. Not once did the thought come into my head to load those suckers up and head to my school. I shot guns. I learned about guns. And frankly, I own no guns because I don't like them. That's my choice. My dad having guns in the house did not turn me into a social deviant or worse, a murderer. And as I indicated, I was a fat kid and picked on. Not once did anything go through my mind to grab a gun and go shoot the people that picked on me. And if I did, and those guns were in our house, that would have been my parents' fault. But the fact my father took me out shooting and I was parented, I didn't do that, and neither do a million other kids. All we hear about are the bad kids. Because that's what news loves. Tragedy. That's what their viewers love. Tragedy. So again, although I feel bad for these parents losing their children to suicide, it's not due to social media. They need to take a long, hard look at themselves to see where things broke down. We live in a world of victim complexes where no one is responsible for their actions. Sorry, parents standing before Congress and Congress people trying to pound their chest to look electable for their constituents. It's all smoke and mirrors to the real issues. Just like racism, sexuality, religion, and politics, we never get to the core of the issue. We revolve around it because it's uncomfortable to discuss. The truth is uncomfortable to discuss. We may offend a small group of people, God forbid. We may pinpoint the cause and find the real issues. Oh my God, that would be catastrophic. No, we don't do that in this country. We seek outside influences to blame instead of getting to the truth. It's easier to say Facebook or Instagram is the cause of a child's suicide rather than its problem in the home, existing mental illness, or bad parenting. See, we can't say it's bad parenting because that's not compassionate enough. They're holding pictures of their dead children in their hands. You need to be compassionate. You need to feel. Evil social media, bad social media. Those parents have their dead kids in their hands. And we just take it on good faith that they're good good parents. That makes no sense. That makes no sense to me. We need to coddle. No tough love to be found anywhere. We need to coddle these people to tell them you have done good. But it's the evil Facebook that was the demise of your child. That realization hurts. It hurts to know as a parent you failed. It may be no one's fault. You parented your child well. Your child seemed balanced, and the bullies were parented well. Somewhere in all that, there is a disconnect, and it's not because of social media. This realization will hurt those parents in Congress because then they have nowhere to point their finger at. Except themselves, but that's not going to happen. You know, sometimes shit just happens. Overall, I'd really like to know what happened in that child's household. I would like to know what in that child's life led them to kill him or herselves. These are the answers we need. We won't pursue them. We'll blame social media, video games, television. Once upon a time it was comic books and everything else beyond where the real answer lies, which is what's happening in the child's surroundings. All we see here is a tragedy blamed on social media. All the news reports are about the darkness of social media because our mainstream media is in the business of doom and gloom. Horrid stories attract viewers that attract advertisers, which makes that network money. The nightly news is not there as a public service. The nightly news is there to make money.
False news has become all too common on social media.
This weekend, the online site Deadspin created this compilation of dozens of Sinclair's local newscasters recording an identical promo accusing the national media of spreading fake news.
And an agenda to control exactly what people think. And this is extremely dangerous to our democracy.
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 The video spread quickly on social media, again stirring criticism of the broadcast giant.
You won't see how social media has allowed children to express themselves with commentary, art, music, or whatever clever thing they thought up. Those social media channels and videos exist. You would never know it watching the evening news. Also, there are thousands, if not millions, of parents who parent. They limit the number of hours their child can play video games. They limit the number of hours they are allowed on the smartphone. They engage in their children's lives to see what they're doing during their day. They restrict their children from certain social media or social media altogether. We'll never see those people on the nightly news. There's no tragedy behind that. Viewers want tragedy. Advertisers want tragedy so they can advertise to those viewers. News networks want that magical advertiser dollar so their fat CEOs can spend their nights counting their millions, if not billions. That's how our world works. My mother adores David Muir. I can't stand the guy. He reads the nightly news like he's a movie trailer voiceover.
We begin tonight with the very heated showdown on Capitol Hill. The top executives from social media companies facing blistering questions from senators and sitting right there were parents holding images of their children, many of whom have died by suicide after being bullied and exploited on social media. The CEOs of Discord, Snap, TikTok, X, and Meta, which of course runs Facebook and Instagram, all taking the oath. Behind them, the heartbroken, determined parents with the photos of their children. And the
could be a perfectly great guy. I'll give props to him to the fact little is known about his personal life, which is always refreshing. He never gives his opinion that I've seen outside of his job. He keeps pretty quiet. My dislike for him may be unfounded. This is my personal bias towards any news anchor that works for a company like Disney, a huge corporation that certainly isn't squeaky clean. Disney is far from squeaky clean. I only bring this up to the fact I was watching ABC Nightly News with my mother the other night with David Muir, where I found out about this whole Senate hearing with these parents holding their children's pictures behind the top brass of social media companies sitting in front of a Senate hearing. Let that sink in. None of that was by coincidence. What a visual for those politicians who care so much for us. I say this sarcastically, obviously, to posture for their constituents, to show what good people they are, what good those senators are, what good those politicians are. What a visual for these parents with their pictures of their dead kids behind the leaders of social media, with Congress in front asking the tough questions. What a bunch of horse shit. When will be the day when good parents who parent their children stand behind leaders of social media and Congress commends them for how much social media has opened up the world, how we can talk to people from all nations in a fraction of a second, how we can share our creativity with the world, how we can keep up with our family and friends. The list goes on, but I think you get my drift. You'll never see that on the nightly news. Sometimes there may be a positive news piece here and there, but that's not what the nightly news or the mainstream news is about. Doom and gloom make money, my friends. So doom and gloom you will get. And you're being manipulated. You're being manipulated by emotion, and it works. Parents with pictures of their dead kids in their hands, standing behind the brass of social media in front of Congress. What a picture, and it works. People don't use their brains, they use their emotions. Oh, that evil social media, down with them. And the majority of people without brains who can't sit back and think they're being manipulated, they'll buy it. They'll buy it all day long and twice on Sunday. And just to the fact that the 3 news clips that I played for you all said they were grilled. Those evil social media CEOs were grilled.
Faced a bipartisan grilling during a Senate hearing.
They were grilled by senators.
Major tech companies were grilled in the Senate.
CEOs were grilled by senators.
They all said the same thing. That's not a coincidence. Let's turn our attention to these politicians, these Washington politicians. Most of these politicians are old white men. How well do they know social media? I can pretty much guarantee they are clueless. Do you really think this guy knows anything about social media? My mother's about the same age. I can't even teach her to use the fucking remote control for the television. They have a preconceived idea before even entering their chambers what it is. They have a preconceived idea what it's all about. But again, this old guy that will see a nursing home in another 5 years, don't tell me that he knows the ins and outs of social media. It always makes me laugh when a bunch of old white politicians ask questions about technology. And let's look at a couple of these politicians. Let's look at our moral compass defending our children against social media. Surely their past is filled with doing what's right. They must have a history of it because they're Washington politicians. They must be righteous. This is Senator John Hawley. On November 14th of 2022, Cole County Circuit Court Judge John Beadham ruled that Hawley violated Missouri's open record law during its 2018 U.S. Senate campaign by withholding emails between his out-of-state political consultants and his taxpayer-funded staff. The Missouri judge ruled that a state agency previously led by Republican Josh Hawley, this asshole right here, broke public record laws on purpose to help his U.S. Senate campaign. This asshole right here is the man with pretend outrage going after social media companies without ever addressing his own scandals. His questions, his points, his thoughts are mute. He's a piece of shit. Let's look at Ted Cruz. Here's just one example of many because he's shooting off his pretend outraged mouth to the evils of social media, asking the tough questions, getting all mean and tough. This is the same guy who went to Cancun, Mexico, leaving his state of Texas as it buckled under the severe effects of a devastating winter storm. He's sunning it up in Cancun, Mexico, while the people he's supposed to govern are deep in snow.
Well, if you hate Ted Cruz, this is a pretty fun week. And if you like Ted Cruz, then you're Ted Cruz. Senator Cruz, whose face is slowly being reclaimed by nature, said that his decision to go on a family vacation to Cancun during Texas's weather emergency was obviously a mistake, as was the tattoo he got there. Cruz initially released a statement saying he only went on vacation because his daughters made him go. And if you think it was bad to throw his daughters under the bus, Cruz would like you to know that that statement was his wife's idea. Also, I just love that after he abandoned Texas, he came back in a Texas flag mask like nothing happened. That's like Jared and Ivanka walking down Fifth Avenue in I Love New York shirts.
Cruz would have returned from Mexico even sooner, but it took him like 40 minutes to get out of a hammock.
This is the same guy, along with his wife, took out nearly $1 million in low-interest loans from Goldman Sachs, where his wife worked, and Citibank, and failed to report them on Federal Election Commission disclosure statements as required by law. This is the same guy who was investigated for his leading role in attempting to overturn the 2020 presidential election results. This is who we have? These are the voices of morality outraged by social media, but now outraged by their own personal unlawful activities? I dismiss both these assholes and anything they have to say. And that's just Hawley and Cruz. I'm sure I could go through every politician on this panel and pick out their scandals. I don't want this video to be 10 hours long. None of these scumbag politicians are innocent or the voice of any reason or the voice of any morality. They're scumbag Washington politicians who put it upon themselves to have a bunch of parents with pictures of their dead kids in their hands standing behind a bunch of social media CEOs and leaders while there in front on camera. Oh, CNN is there, and Fox and ABC and CBS and C-SPAN. They're all there to cover this. They're on the camera. They're looking magnificent. It's an election year. It's a presidential election year, so let's go all out. They are all scumbag Washington politicians. What they say and what they ask, to me anyways, in my opinion, is mute. Because they're backed by these social media people. Their campaigns are backed by these social media people. I don't for a fucking second believe what they're pushing. They're manipulating those parents. They're manipulating you, and they're using those dead kids to further their political agenda or their political careers. Our government is always trying to figure out how to control free speech, and specifically the internet. They have for years. There's no righteous cause here for any politician. Let's get this right out of the way. This is boistering. This is pounding of chest. This is business as usual for the scumbags in Washington. Manipulating you with emotion, and it fucking works. In conclusion, we live in a society of putting the blame on someone or something else. Did these parents conclude social media killed their kids on their own? Did some sway them to reach that conclusion? Did another entity put the thought in their heads? Who fucking knows? Is there an underlying factor beyond social media? Absolutely. Is social media to blame? Absolutely not. Millions of people use it every day, including children, with zero incidents. There's millions and millions of parents not standing behind the CEOs of social media and in front of Congress. For the simple fact it's just not fucking newsworthy. Is social media and its owners righteous? Mark Zuckerberg is a piece of shit. He and his company have done evil things. There's a lawsuit out there that they lost to prove it. I made a video on that already, on how Facebook and Meta sold and gave away their users' information. I made a video already on Instagram and their scummy advertising tactics. Funny now that I think of it, why is it Meta that's always getting in trouble, Zuckerberg? At this point, I'm very interested in what you think. If you happen to make it to the end of this video without wanting to push me out a 20-story building, then I thank you. If you happen to want to push me out a 20-story building, then let me know why. Unlike our scumbag politicians in Washington, I want to know what you think. This is my opinion. Now I want to know yours. So another question I would ask is, where are the bullies? Where are the bullies' parents? Are they being held accountable? How about the sex offenders? Are laws strong enough for sex offenders not to be on the internet, not to be on social media? Are we too lenient on sex offenders? There's an underlying reason, and it's not social media. There's been predators since before the internet. There's been bullies since time began, since humanity began. It's not social media's fault. So social media is an outlet. It's not the problem. A bully can come up to you and tap you on the shoulder, call you an asshole, hit you in the stomach. How do you regulate that? Well, government really can't do that. I don't like to be a conspiracy theorist. Government is not always our friend. We feel this way because time and time again, we see how government is, how it's run, what it does, the stupid things it does. And that's why we have a bad taste in our mouth, I think, for government. And I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but I do believe they try to regulate things. Do they do it for the good of the people? I highly doubt it. Maybe they're misguided in that, if that is the fact. I just think they want to control. I think they want to control language and thought and speech for their betterment. And it seems that that's what governments do. And that's what people in power do, because I absolutely believe everyone in Washington is a narcissist scumbag. And that might not be 100% true, but it's what I believe. You know, that's my opinion, not necessarily yours. So I'd be much more interested in the bullies' parents, what situation is going on there. Bullies are bullies for a reason. They grew up in an abusive household, or an alcoholic father, alcoholic mother. There's always a reason. Same with these parents. I'm not saying any of these parents are terrible parents, but are they? What's going on in their household? What's going on in this kid's mind? You know, their son or their daughter's mind. What psychological issues are in their child? Are they being addressed? Are the parents watching the kids? Are they seeing what they're doing? Are they taking active participation in their lives? Social media, video games, what movies they watch, what friends they hang out with, things of that nature. See, all we see is a snapshot that's supposed to invoke emotion. All we see is a group of parents behind the evil corporations. And don't get me wrong, I'm not an advocate for any corporations. They're scumbags too. I'm not an advocate for any of the top social media CEOs or leaders of that. I'm not defending them in any way. I think they're evil on their own, but the fact that these parents are blaming the situation on social media, I think this time out is 100% incorrect. So you got these parents with their dead kids' pictures in the background. You got right behind the CEOs, right, or the leaders of social media, and then you got Congress in front. What a fucking picture. And that's all you get. You get a snapshot of that. And then you get a bunch of asshole senators trying to boister and look important and look concerned. And then you look at their background and see the bullshit they've done in their lives and their careers. It kind of mutes the whole thing. It kind of dissolves the whole thing. You know, there's no meaning behind it because I don't think they're sincere. So that's a picture, that's a snapshot that we get. And people get all emotional and sit back and, oh my God, those poor parents, which they are. They lost their kid. You know, I'm not demeaning that. I'm very sorry they lost their kid, but I'm just painting a picture. So you're going to say, as a viewer, my mom, for example, would watch that. Oh my God, those poor parents, those evil social media giants. Oh, Congress is trying to do their best to alleviate this and help us. No. They're just trying to control the internet. They're trying to control free speech. They've been doing it since they've been trying to regulate the internet, neutrality, net neutrality, internet neutrality since the internet existed, right? It's kind of hard to do just to the fact that it's worldwide and it would be hard to police the internet. So that's really what this video is about. Again, I don't know these parents. I feel bad for these parents, but I made this video because I wanted whoever looks at it, whoever watches it, the whole 10 people that will watch this, I just want to give you a different perspective. I want to give you a different thought. I want you to engage in critical thought. Sit back. Are you being manipulated? I absolutely think you are. I think these parents, their direction, their anger, or they're just going after the wrong entity, right? Maybe they're just lashing out. They need someone to lash out to. Maybe they need to do lawsuits. There's a lot of scummy people out there. They'll sue anyone for anything. So I'll be surprised if some of these parents don't sue social media to get money. And I know that's bad to say, but that's also life. That's also humanity. Not everyone's a good person. There are millions of good parents out there. I see my gal pal parent her kids. She does it with an iron fist. She parents. You know, she's friends with them, but there's a certain level where she doesn't put up with shit. They have to do certain things, and then she takes an interest in their life. She brings them to games. She sits there at games. She's engaged in their homework. She's engaged in their lives, are these parents. So that's the point of this video, gals and guys. I can't stress it enough that I'm not attacking these parents in any way. I'm just questioning. Because like I said, we're just getting a snapshot. We're just getting a snapshot of Congress boistering and questioning these CEO people while there's grieving parents, maybe being manipulated. I don't know the situation, and you don't know the situation, and that's what makes me question exactly what's going on, because it's just a snapshot of the real story, and there's so many puzzle pieces behind it. There's so many lives involved, what's going on in their life, to the fact that we don't know. So just to sit back and look at that one picture and make a judgment call, I think is incorrect. So I wanted to generate this video, generate thought, generate critical thinking, because I think people watch the news and that's it. They get that snapshot, they don't think about it, and that's what is. And that's not always the case. All right, gals and guys, I'm going to stop rambling. I think I got everything off my system that I wanted to about this whole thing. There's tons and millions, and there's people that go on social media and make it positive. Here is this experiment. Do this for me if you could. Go to YouTube and put in the word parent and do a search. About 90% of what you scroll through is going to be negative. It's going to be negative stuff. Parents suing so-and-so, bad parents, bad parenting. So do that as an experiment. Now, that's not the majority of the population. That is tragedy, and people cling to tragedy. People want to see that stuff. They don't want to see parents taking care of their kids. That's boring. Fuck that. But there's millions and millions of parents out there that take care of their kids. There's millions and millions of kids on social media that are just fine. They have a positive experience. They play games. They reach out with friends. They post pictures, and it's not social media that is the problem. It's society, and it's a certain people in society. It is the predators. It is the bullies. It's been happening before the internet. It's been happening before the computer. It's been happening before the car. You get my meaning. All right, gals and guys, if you could please subscribe, I would appreciate that. I got more to come. Of course, I always have more to come. Please thumbs up if you like this. And please share this with anybody, really. Maybe it will spark a thought, and they'll sit back and kind of, weigh both sides. It's not always a one-side issue, right? Nothing is black and white ever in life. And hit that bell for updates. And that's it. I'm done yapping. All right, gals and guys, I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye. Peace.